Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to the channel. I'm Cheryl, and this is True Crime and Other Stuff. Thanks for being here, where I like to bring you the facts about true crime, the missing, current events, or anything I find interesting or important. Today, we're going to talk about Chad Doerman. Chad Doerman is the guy that killed his three sons last year, right before Father's Day. Doerman, 33, pled guilty to 3 counts of aggravated murder and 2 counts of felonious assault Friday afternoon as part of a plea deal with the prosecutors, who agreed to stop pursuing the death penalty in exchange for the admission. He was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences in prison without the possibility of parole. Additionally, the 2 felonious assault charges carry a 16-year minimum sentence, which would be served consecutively to the life sentences. Doerman has been held in the Claremont County Jail since his arrest last June. Let's take a look at this video. Oops.
With the story leading up to the story today.
911, where's your emergency?
June 15th, 2023, residents in rural Claremont County, Ohio, call 911 after hearing gunshots at a neighbor's home.
There's a girl running down the street being like her stepbrother and killing everyone in her family.
First responders raced to the
Okay, right now I want to say trigger warning because this case is very horrific and everything about it is a trigger. So, with that being said, let's watch the video.
house and make a horrifying discovery.
3 children have been shot, not breathing.
Police found the bodies of 3 young brothers lying in the front yard. 7-year-old Clayton, 4-year-old Hunter, and 3-year-old Chase. Their father, 32-year-old Chad Doerman, was sitting on the front steps when officers arrived.
Stand up! Stand the up! Get your hand.
Yeah, the roads remain solid.
Investigators say all 3 boys were shot in the head.
State of Arts is Chad Doerman, 2023 CRA 1975.
Chad Doerman stood silently in the courtroom as the prosecutor described the death of one of his sons.
We know that one of the boys was able to flee into a field near the home. And again, we know from his admission, father hunted that boy down, drug him back to the property, and executed him in front of witnesses.
Prosecutors were planning to seek the death penalty for Doerman, who was charged with aggravated murder, kidnapping, and assault.
At today's hearing, Doerman made it clear to the judge that he understood everything that comes with entering his guilty plea before the judge ultimately handed down his sentence. Take a listen.
Mr. Doerman is going to be entering a plea of guilty to 3 counts of aggravated murder. And there were aggravated circumstances return on all of those, which obviously made him eligible for the death penalty. The state, as part of the plea agreement, which will be discussed shortly, has dismissed those 9, all the aggravated circumstances in each of the 9 aggravated murder counts. So those aggravated circumstances have been dismissed. That entry has been filed with the clerk and is a record. So consequently, this is no longer considered a capital case. In addition to pleading guilty to counts 1, 2, and 3, you and the state are recommending what I refer to as a jointly recommended agreed sentence as to these 3 counts, and I'll discuss the other 2 momentarily. In each of these 3 counts, you agree that the court will impose today a sentence of life in prison without the chance of parole for count 1, the same sentence in count 2, and the same sentence in count 3. And all of these sentences will be served consecutively with one another. That may sound somewhat unusual because life without parole is life without parole. But essentially, they're being ordered to be served consecutively so that it is unmistakably clear that you will spend the rest of your life in prison with no chance for parole. So you understand those sentences and the consequences of those sentences. Yes, sir.
There it is, 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 16 years for counts 18 and 20. All will be served consecutively. Safe to say he is never leaving the correctional system in the state of Ohio. Joining us tonight, national trial attorney, big case Mike, there he is, Michael Jafer. Happy Friday to you, but what a horrible case this is, and what a day in that courtroom. You look at those kids, and their life is taken by their father in such an egregious way. I'm sure some people are thinking, of all people, this guy deserves a death penalty. But Mom released a statement today saying that they are absolutely in agreement with the state here for this deal. Your thoughts?
You literally just finished my sentence before I even said it. That's exactly what happened. So just so the viewers can see behind the scenes what happens with these types of conversations. When the defense counsel was appointed, the first thing that the defense counsel did was call the prosecutor and say, I got to come talk to you. I'm going to be their attorney. I really don't want to try this case. And the prosecutor would have came back and said, this is so heinous, I also don't want to try the case. But even though it's up to me, I've got to get the consent of the mother first. Let me see if the mother's on board. And then the prosecutor would have called the mother and told the mother, look, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I have a 99% likelihood that I'll get him sentenced to death if you want me to. But we'd be putting you and this community through a trial. Are you okay with me sending him literally into a hole where not only will he never see the light of day again, he literally will not see the sun again. We will also put him on suicide protocol so that he cannot even take his own life and excuse himself from the torment that the jail will give him. I could do that. Which one of those 2 do you want me to do? And then the mother would have had to tell the prosecutor, you know what, I would rather go through door number 2. If I'm not going to die and be released from this pain, I don't want him to die and be released from the pain. Put him on suicide protocol, put him in jail for the rest of his life. But it wasn't done yet, Ted. Because after those 2 bodies agreed, the state of Ohio through the prosecutor and the family through the mother, a 3rd body had to agree, and that's the court through the judge. That judge could have thrown up that deal. But the fact that even the judge went forward without even having to take it under advisement, that shows you that that entire community did not want to go through that case. Everybody made the right decision. And so that's why you had this plea, and that's why the judge accepted it.
Yeah, and you never know with a death case as well. You can go through all of that, force the families to go through it. Laura Doerman, is the wife, and she has a daughter who is also involved in this. At the end of the day, jury could easily come back and say no to the death penalty because it is so difficult to impose the death penalty. And the defense would have been vigorous, bringing up a mental episode. We already saw indications of that going in. We're going to talk about this a little later in the hour with a professional, but in your experience, what's life going to look like for him in prison?
He's going to be on suicide protocol probably for the rest of his life. He's going to be in solitary confinement. They're going to send him to a maximum security prison. He's going to be, so when you visit a prison, there are the inmates that have privileges. They can go to the vending machine. They can have family visit them. He's not going to be in that. He's going to be in a level 5 maximum security prison. He's not going to have any privileges. He's going to be in shackles for the rest of his life, because there's nothing more egregious. Now, he will receive treatment, and there will also be many universities, I think at least 1 or 2 universities that will want to study his mind in order to see if they can come up with a reason to prevent this from happening in the future, right? If you could get into the mind of an individual like this and see how black and dark the hole is, perhaps you could get mental health treatment for people in the future, because this is not the last time this is going to happen. It's not the first time that could happen. So life for him in prison will be different than any other murderer. He will be a source of study, in my opinion, by at least 1 or 2 universities, some psychiatric wards. People will study this guy, but I think I'm pretty confident his life in prison is going to be the worst type of existence you could have. Death is going to be better than the existence he's going to have, and he's lucky that he didn't get sentenced to death.
For the attorneys that representing him and even the prosecutors, because we're going to listen to the prosecutor who basically is holding his emotions in check during this hearing today, just detailing the case. Everyone in the room, you kind of alluded to it, they're looking at the discovery, they're seeing the horrible images and of these 3 little boys and what happened to them and the way it took place, the fear that they must have felt, realizing their own father, the guy who was, going to Little League practice with them, is now at the other end of a rifle. How difficult? I know you've seen a lot. Are there a few that rock your world still?
Yes. When I first started analyzing cases on Court TV, I asked all you guys, how do you guys deal with, covering some of these cases, right? And I got advice from other people. I stopped trying criminal cases about 10 years ago because, and I never had a client who'd murdered their own children, right? But I was aware of cases where they were, because I would really try some very jarring cases and defend people that at the end of the day, I did not want to defend, but I did it. And even as a public defender, kind of didn't have a choice in some instances. But if you see that even the confession that he had was thrown out because his constitutional rights were violated by the police officers, why? You rarely see that. Why? Because no one is equipped to deal with a situation like this. No police officer, no prosecutor, no judge, no one's equipped to deal with it. We're equipped to deal with murder, capital crimes, capital offenses. We're just not equipped to deal. No human being is equipped. If you are equipped to deal with something like this, then you've had a horrendous life, right? And so nobody's ready to deal with something like this, which is why, in my opinion, this deal was done quickly, was done quietly, and it was pushed through. Nobody objected. Again, 3 bodies had to consent to this, and all 3 bodies consented. Yeah. So
it's very rare. 1 year, just 1 year later, triple murder has been adjudicated. Michael Jafford, thank you. Enjoy your weekend. We really appreciate it. When we come back, the prosecutor on the case gets emotional as he walks through the horrific events of the day of the murders. Stay with us.
He would just turn to me and he says to me in the middle of the game, "Hey, Coach, you want to come over to my house and watch some fireworks and go swimming this weekend?"
They got along really well for 3 siblings. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's always sibling rivalry, but those boys were always supporting each other.
Those were members of the Doerman community in Claremont County, Ohio, during a vigil for the 3 young boys whose lives were taken by their now convicted father. Today, in a surprise plea deal, Chad Doerman pled guilty to all counts of aggravated murder, kidnapping, and felonious assault for last year's murders of his sons. As a result, he will not face the death penalty, but will spend the rest of his life behind bars without any possibility of parole. During today's hearing, the prosecuting attorney appeared to be choked up as he tried to recount the grueling details of the events that transpired on that summer day last year. The boys lost their lives. Take a listen to a guy who knows this case very well talk about it in court today.
On that date, Judge, June 15, 2023, the defendant returned home early from work and had his family, including his wife, Laura Doerman, with him. All three of the boys joined him in the master bedroom for a nap. At some point after lying down with the four of them, the defendant got out of bed, opened a gun safe that was next to the bed, removed a Marlin Model EC-22 rifle from the gun safe and loaded the magazine. The defendant shot his son, Hunter Doerman, twice while in the bedroom. His wife, Laura, began to render aid to Hunter and yelled for the other children to run. Laura's 14-year-old daughter, Alexis, who had been watching television in the family room, made her way to the master bedroom and witnessed the killing of Hunter. Alexis immediately began to run and indicated that Chasen had fled out the back door. Clayton had fled out the back door, and that Chad Doerman was following Clayton. She ran to help to try to protect Clayton. Anyway, the three of them go out the back door. Clayton's first, then there's the defendant, and then Alexis. Alexis witnesses the defendant chase after Clayton, raised his rifle, fired numerous shots at Clayton as he fled, and saw Clayton fall in the field after he was struck by the gunfire. Alexis then watched as the defendant approached Clayton while he's injured, lying on the ground, defenseless, and saw the defendant put a bullet in Clayton's head, killing him. The defendant, Alexis then, Your Honor, ran back, fled into the residence where she picked up the youngest child, the little 3-year-old boy, Chase Doerman. She attempted to flee the residence with Chase to protect him, but the defendant saw her crossing the yard. The defendant gave chase, pointed the rifle directly at Alexis' head, and threatened to shoot Alexis if she did not drop Chase. Alexis put Chase down. He's crying the whole time. The defendant then pointed the firearm at Chase's head, but it just clicked. The magazine was empty. Alexis begged for the defendant not to shoot her. Chase then saw his mother, who had come outside at some point, trying to render aid to Hunter. So Chase runs to his mom. And then there's a very difficult situation that evolved where Laura and the defendant struggled over the weapon. Laura was bitten as she tried to protect Chase from the defendant. The defendant bit her. She put her thumb over the end of the barrel in an effort to stop the bullet. She was shot in the thumb. Ultimately, she had to drop Chase. During this point in time, the defendant was able to reload the firearm and pointed the gun at Chase's head and executed him one round to his skull.
Oof. So difficult to listen to that and hear.
Yes, that is very difficult to listen to. It's very horrible. I got another video here where the prosecution breaks down like a timeline before this happened. Let's take a look at this.
After a Claremont County father admitted to murdering his 3 young sons and was sentenced to life in prison without parole, prosecutors are now walking us through their investigation.
Yeah, prosecutors say leading up to the shooting, the Doerman family was just living a happy, normal life, according to most. But all of that changed on June 15th of last year. WLWT News 5's Karen Johnson live for us in Batavia tonight with more. Karen.
Yeah, Mike, even the night before the shooting, prosecutors say everything seemed normal. Chad Doerman coached his oldest son, Clayton's baseball team. The entire family was there. Then the next day, June 15th, Chad Doerman leaves for work around 7 a.m.
On his way to work, he searches on YouTube for a song titled Happy in Hell.
Part of the lyrics between Happy and Hell, That's Where I'm Living Now. Later that morning,
that's him.
Walking into Kroger wearing the same clothes he was wearing when he killed his 3 sons several hours later. 7-year-old Clayton, 4-year-old Hunter, and 3-year-old Chase. Doerman walked up to the little clinic at the advice of his mother.
He expressed to her, not to Laura, that he was having some confusing feelings.
He waits about 2 minutes and leaves. Once at home, he plays with his sons while his wife Laura makes lunch.
Oddly, the defendant says to Laura that this will be my last good meal. 3:30 to 3:45, he begins to read the Bible to Hunter. He's walking around the house with the Bible mumbling, Chad knows what's right, Chad knows what's right. Shortly before he kills his kids, Doerman calls his father and makes the statement that Clayton is going to be the hardest one. And suddenly, after lying down, the defendant jumps up, grabs the 22 rifle from the safe, and terror fills the room.
Laura's initial concern, her husband is about to kill himself. Instead, he murders their 3 boys.
Did you shoot your son?
Yeah.
Who did?
I don't remember.
12 days later, after denying he shot the boys, Doerman seemed to find the publicity humorous in a recorded jail call with his brother.
Hey, they thought Hitler was a big dude. Yeah, I'm matching him.
Diagnosed, treated, or prescribed any medication for mental illness. Prosecutors say Doerman made various statements to law enforcement that he knew what he was doing and did not appear to be in the throes of a delusion. Reporting live tonight, Karen Johnson, WLWT News 5.
All right, he pled guilty, so life in prison, no death penalty. What a horrible case. Let me know what you think about this case in the comments below, and thanks for watching my videos. Have a good one. Peace.